Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We are live from Books and Books here in Coral Gables. For those of you who didn't see the giant sign outside, we are the Publishers Weekly Bookstore of the Year for 2015. Thank you very much. So we're very happy to have you here with us, and very happy that those people who are watching online as well. To our internet audience, if at any time during tonight's presentation you'd like to buy a copy of the book, give us a call here at the store. We'll get you a book autographed and for no charge. For the shipping, at least here in the United States, we'll ship you a signed copy. For those of you here, again, silence your cell phones. I said you can take pictures, but no flash. Don't forget to visit us online, booksandbooks.com. When you go there, give us your email address so we can alert you to all the great events we have here at Books and Books every night of the week. We do plenty of events here, so you'll never miss anything. If you give us your email address, we send you a lot of emails, but you'll never be lonely that way, and you'll always know what's going on here, so we'd appreciate that. And we archive all these events as well, so you can go back and see yourself tonight or any other event that we've got broadcast here at the store. You can follow the link on our webpage, and you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Tonight, we're very happy to have with us back Jeff Lindsay, the author of the Dexter novels. After 7 national bestsellers and 8 seasons as one of the most successful shows on television, New York Times bestselling author Jeff Lindsay bids a thrilling farewell to his uniquely twisted and beloved serial killer, Dexter Morgan. Dexter is Dead is the definitive conclusion of the character who has become a global icon. Jeff Lindsay's trademark devilish wit and cutting satire have never been sharper. Dexter is Dead marks the end of his beloved series, but is also Dexter's most satisfying and suspenseful outing yet. Jeff lives right here in South Florida with his wife and 3 daughters. As I say, we're very happy to have him back. Please welcome Jeff Lindsay.
Do I get that now? Oh, I've got. Am I turned on? Can you mute this on? It's better. All right. I always do that, and every now and then it gets a laugh, so I keep it. Wow, look, nice crowd. Nothing on TV tonight, huh? This is something I've been doing for a while, and there's a certain amount of sort of standard material. So, just by a show of hands, how many people here tonight have never seen me before? Oh, good. And how many people are seeing me for the first time? Yeah, almost the same. That's good. I should admit, because he's dead and he might be watching, I stole that from Steve Allen. I worked for him for 4 years. I wish it was a punchline like I worked for him for 4 years one weekend, but it actually was 4 years. And I think, other than that, the only thing I stole from him was this big floppy fedora he used to do on his old show in some sketches called Big Bill Allen. And whenever I'm feeling down, I put the hat on and I look in the mirror and say, "You're dead and I'm not." And that's so it ended happily for me. I never really know what to say in these things because I half suspect that people want me to talk about myself. And I have to tell you that the main reason I failed as both an actor and a comedian is that I'm really not good at talking about myself. Now, as an actor, you probably know that's the main requirement for the job, is being able to talk about yourself in a positive manner. And what I'm really good at is self-deprecating, self-loathing. So as a career, that didn't work out. As a comedian, which I actually did for a while as well, that was a large part of the problem because really good comedians, they don't just tell one-liners other than Henny Youngman and Gilbert Gottfried. What they do is talk about themselves in a truthful, insightful way that reaches out to everybody else. And once again, I was stuck. I was writing jokes. And this is really where the story begins about being a writer, because I've had about 40 careers, and they've all led back to writing. Because I started with comedian, I'll just explain. There was one joke in particular. I thought it was the funniest joke I'd ever written, and one of the funniest I'd ever heard. I have now told this joke hundreds of times, all over the world, in 4 languages, and it has never once gotten a laugh. Until I say, that was the joke. And it was the important part of the act where you get people on your side by telling them a little about yourself. And I was saying that I came from my father was a teacher, and I couldn't really afford college. And I decided I'd help work my way through college by doing odd jobs. And the first day I tried this, I knocked on a door, and a lady opened, said yes. And I said, my name is Jeff. I'm working my way through college doing odd jobs. Do you have any for me? And she said, sure. Fill these beach balls with insects. That was the joke. Because if you think about it for just a minute, filling beach balls with insects would be a really... Never mind. I have to say there's a minor moment of triumph in this story because my 11-year-old daughter thinks it's very funny. She looks like a cherub, and somewhere inside there is a 60-year-old Borscht Belt comic. Just to give you an example, she comes out deadpan with these killer zingers that I crack up. She's one of the few people that really crack me up. As an example, last summer when the Ebola thing was going around, I took her somewhere for an ice cream cone. Cute little blonde girl getting an ice cream cone, you know. And the woman behind the counter sneezed. And I said, oh my God, Ebola. And as the woman just stared at me like this, behind me, I heard the voice, too soon, Dad. Which is pure comic talk, so I don't know where it came from. But she likes it. Another career I had that I mentioned was as an actor. And I was in a traveling repertory company, and we had contracted for an original play. And at a certain point in the summer, the director came to me and said, that original play, the playwright died. Could you write a play for us? And I was a writer again. And when I had a rock and roll band, the rest of the guys said, we don't want to just do covers. Could you maybe write lyrics? And I was a writer again. And it seems to me like everything I ever did somehow, I assume if I had become a pharmacist, that I would just be writing the most prescriptions too. Somehow it always led back. Now, I'm not a religious guy, and because I lived in California for 12 years, I have a deep distrust of New Age mysticism. But I do feel like if you're supposed to be doing something, you get your nose rubbed in it until you give in and do it. And so for me, that moment came. And actually, it came at that, as all good things so far have come, at the hands of my wife, Hillary Hemingway. She had come out to Los Angeles to write a screenplay for Republic Pictures. And she came to see one of my plays, in which I also played a part. And I think I sang the musical score and a couple of other things. I was also house manager. It was a small theater. And she gave me afterwards that moment from City Slickers where Jack, I want to say Paladin. Is it Jack? Palance, thank you. Paladin was his show. Anyway, that moment where he goes, one thing. She said, you know, you'd be really good if you just stuck to doing one thing. And I said, yeah, but which one? And she said, well, I could really use a writing partner. So we were writing partners for 3 years, afraid to start anything at all romantic, although we liked each other a lot. I've known her since we were both kids. And our families took trips together, vacations, sailing trips, picnics, camping trips. And so we didn't want to screw it up with the mothers, who, unknown to me, were both pushing really hard in the background. And the real kicker was that in Los Angeles, it's really easy to find someone to sleep with, but to find a good writing partner is hell. And we didn't want to mess that up either. But eventually we did, and we got married, and we actually had breakfast with Steven Spielberg, which not many people ever get to do, because he usually skips breakfast. And I would like to report he's a very nice guy, just because I know he has spies everywhere. No, but he really is. He's a very nice guy. We had a good time. And here's why I don't trust California mysticism. All the 2 weeks leading up to it, I'd been doing the thing that was going around then about positive imaging and picturing in my head exactly how the meeting would go, ending with him saying, well, that sounds great. Let's make the movie. And the meeting went exactly as I'd pictured it, and I was like vibrating. And it was perfect, and he was fascinated, and he gave us 90 minutes to 2 hours, somewhere in there. And at the time when it came for him to say, that sounds great, let's make the movie, he said, well, that sounds great, but I'm really not interested. I have something else I'm doing right now. And I went, no, that's not your line. But after that, because that had fallen through, and because another deal we had set up at a different studio, and we were all set to go into production, and they had just made the stencils to put our names on the parking place on the lot. When the star of the movie, his newest movie came out and bombed, so nobody wanted him as a star. And the same thing happened to the director of the movie. And so they canceled the picture, because without that star and that director, obviously the script sucked. So they burned the stencil, and we were out again. So at that point, we came home to Florida. And an agent saw one of our movie scripts lying on a table. She read it and came pounding on the door and said, I can sell this if you can turn it into a book. And from there, although there have been no real backward steps, it's been pretty much what there is. The beginning of Dexter, which, as I said, I've been doing this for a while, and there are a certain number of FAQs, and that's one reason I asked at the beginning if anyone had heard the good material before. Because it's like listening to comedy albums. After 2 or 3 times, you need a new one. And honestly, I'm not going to have a new one until I have a new book out. So this is the jokes, folks. Because I had a couple of books out, I was asked by the Kiwanis Club to come and give a short lecture to their weekly businessmen's luncheon about why you have to read one book before you die, or there will be nothing in your head when they bury you, I guess. So before I go on, I want to say I like the Kiwanis. I have nothing against the Kiwanis. I think it's a fine organization, and I was actually a member of the Key Club in high school, which everyone knows is a Kiwanis front organization. And I was sitting there at this luncheon, at the head table, looking out at this room filled with ambulance-chasing lawyers, realtors, and because it's South Florida, bail bondsmen. And they were all giving each other horrible fake smiles and hearty handshakes and passing out business cards and talking with food in their mouth, which I was raised to believe is wrong. And the idea just came to me right there, I don't know from where, that serial murder, it's not always a bad thing. And as I wondered, what did I mean by that, I started taking notes on those greasy little cocktail napkins about what did I mean by that? And, and that would work. And I went home with a stack of napkins like that was really the birth of Dexter. Now, I can never remember. This upsets me. Are there any classic French tragedians in the house? Not a one? Oh, this is incredible. Yes. Oh, very good, Monsieur Charles. I cannot remember if it's Corneille or Racine who said this. Racine is in Wisconsin. Then it was Corneille. Thank you. He had an idea for a new play, and he locked himself into his office for 3 days and 3 nights. And all of his friends are gathered outside, pacing worriedly and looking at the door from time to time. Nothing's coming from inside except maybe... And after 3 days and 3 nights, as his friends took shifts to make sure he'd come out and be okay, suddenly the doors burst open, and Corneille, or Racine, steps out and goes, "It's done! My new play is completely finished! Now all I have to do is write the words." That's where I was with Dexter at this point. It took 4.5 years to finish the book from that point. Partly because back then I still had to work for a living, but also because, as I started by saying, one of my specialties is self-loathing, and I could not believe that anyone would want to read this really stupid book about a sympathetic serial killer. I mean, first of all, who wants to read about serial killers? Second of all, a sympathetic one is just absurd. It's insulting people's empathy and intelligence and kindness. And I also have to point out, when the book did come out eventually, this is a sort of a footnote, one of the first reviews said, "Dexter revitalizes the serial killer genre." And because it's me, my reaction was, holy Christ, there's a genre? What's wrong with people? But in the meantime, I would get 1 or 2 chapters and stop and go, this is stupid, I'm wasting my time, I don't want to do this. And my wife had read it at this point, and she said, no, this is it, this is the book, this is going to make you, you've got to finish it. And I go, no, I can't, it's stupid, it's hateful, nobody wants to read it, I can't do it. She goes, please finish it. So I'd write another chapter, and then I'd break down again, and she'd come in and say, you have to finish. And I'd say, why me? Why is it always me? Why does it have to be me? I don't want to. So 4.5 years. And when it was finally done, I sent it off to our agent of the time. Now, this was a pretty good agent. He just made us a pretty good deal for a book called Hunting with Hemingway, which I need to point out is about to be re-released as an ebook. And I really like this one for maybe personal reasons, but I think it's a fun book. And if you look at the book, the original copy, it's Hunting with Hemingway by Hillary Hemingway. And Jeffy Lindsay. Tiny letters at the bottom. My agent at the time did not object to that. No one objected to that. But the agent should have and didn't because he assumed I was some kind of Svengali who had leached himself onto A. Hemingway. Because we all know that writing talent is genetic. And incidentally, the term A. Hemingway has haunted me since I got married. They're not generic, trust me on this. Some of them are very different. And people keep asking me, what's it like to be married to A. Hemingway? And as I fight down the urge to bitch slap them, I say, no, she's H. Hemingway, or something like that. Anyway, the agent assumed that she was the talent and I was just leeching off all of the money that actually she didn't have, because she doesn't get any income from the Hemingway estate because it's her uncle, not her grandfather or anything like that. And how much money has your dead uncle sent you lately? But it sat, the first copy of Darkly Dreaming Dexter sat on the agent's floor for a year, unread, untouched. Now, again, picking up the theme of self-deprecating, self-loathing, the first 6 or 7 months I was going, it's okay, nobody'd want to read it anyway, it's fine, I don't really care. I think he's right to reject me because everyone else will, and there's no point in him even reading it, so why should he bother? It's okay. But about 8 months in, I started thinking, well, shit, he should just read it. I mean, it would be nice for him to actually say, this is really stupid, and you're an idiot to have written it, and go do something else, right? And by 9 months, I'm thinking, that son of a bitch. And so finally, after an entire year, we fired him and got another agent. And another agent. And another and another and another and another and another. I think it was 6 altogether. And each one of them actually read the manuscript and said, there's no market for this kind of thing. I might be able to get you a couple of grand for it, but on the whole, why don't you move on to something else? And each time I would say to Hillary, see, I told you, I suck. There's no point. Just let me go into the bathtub and slip my wrist. It'll be... And she did not give up. And finally, anybody with any connections in publishing here tonight? Then you'll have to take this on faith. In publishing, there is something that is known as the Korean Mafia. And what it is a bunch of really smart Korean-American people who all went to Yale or Princeton or something, and they're all in publishing, and probably because their mothers are like mothers everywhere, they all stay in touch. And one of these was a good friend of Hillary's. And through this friend, Hillary got the manuscript sent to an agent named Nick Ellison. Now, I looked him up and I wasn't that impressed because he only had 3 or 4 clients. Nelson DeMille, Olivia Goldsmith, Christopher Moore, 3 clients, big deal. But a month later, he wrote me a letter that was so flattering that I assumed my mother had written it to make me feel better, and I didn't answer it. But he called a couple of times, and finally I talked to him, and he said, I would be honored to represent this book. And from that point on, it just sort of took off. All of the years of this'll never happen. It was reviewed in the New Yorker magazine. New Yorker does not generally review cheesy slasher books, so I was surprised. But so was a producer who read the review and thought that sounds interesting and bought the book, loved it, and took it to Showtime. And that much of it, at least, was history. This, by the way, is condensing a lot of the FAQ I usually get to save you the trouble, but I do want to say, at a certain point in the evening, I will be doing question and answer. Now, what that means is it's an even division of labor. I do the answers. This implies heavily that it is incumbent upon you to ask questions. I'm warning you in advance. Start thinking, not so that you tune me out or fall asleep, but start thinking up questions now, okay? Really good ones, because I get bored with the same ones. I can't remember. One of the things I did in Los Angeles when I had a theater, I produced Paul Krasner's stand-up show. Does anyone remember Paul Krasner? Really? Wow. Editor and founder of The Realist magazine. Inventor of proactive fiction. He would do journalism, proactive fiction journalism, which he told me was stories that sounded so good they really ought to be true. And they would get picked up every now and then by the wire services and broadcast as real stories, truth. So it was predating The Onion by many years, doing the same kind of thing, but people would take it seriously then. Anyway, he would do a thing in his shows because a certain thing happens to habitual users of some things that are only legal in a few states. And one of them is when they wander, they get lost. And he would always appoint a tangent spotter. And when he went off on one of those tangents, like I have done just now, he would go, tangent spotter, where was I? And it was their job to say, Chicago 7 trial. Right, thank you. So could I ask you to be tangent spotter tonight, since we spoke a little earlier? And just when I start to wander and I say, where was I, you'll tell me? Good, thank you. Where was I? See, you need a tangent spotter too, it's not just me. Okay, the series went into production for Showtime. I was asked to consult. I had actually had a meeting with the president and a few other executives of the network, and I told them I did 12 years of hard time in Hollywood, and I understand what adaptation means. And I know that most sets have a sign saying writers not allowed unless accompanied by an adult. And I just want you to know, you use me as a resource any way you want, or ignore me if you want. I'm just happy to help if I can. And so they chose to consult with me a little bit. Now, I should have known what consult meant, because as I said, I was in Hollywood. But here's an example of what it means. They called me one day and said, we found the perfect actor to play Dexter. And I said, that's great, who is it? And they said, Michael C. Hall. And I said, who's that? They said, well, have you seen 6 Feet Under? And I'd seen a couple of episodes. And I said, oh, well, I never pictured Dexter with blonde hair. And they said, oh, no, not Peter Strauss, the other one. I said, there is no other one, except that short, low forehead, dwarfy, weird-looking guy. And they said, yeah, that's Michael. I said, no, out of the question. No, not in the cards at all. He could never in a million years play Dexter. He's totally wrong. Find somebody else. And they said, well, we've already hired him. So as I said, this is what consult means in Hollywood. The first day on the set, I went looking for Michael because I didn't think he was going to be right. I wanted to see him in person. And as I walked back and forth across the set, this tall, slim, good-looking guy with a high forehead would smile at me, and I'd walk by going, where is that little runty, low-forehead bastard? And finally, someone said to me, have you met Michael Hall yet? And I said, no, I've been looking for him. And it was the tall, thin, high-forehead, nice-looking guy. That was Michael. And I swear to you, if you take a film clip of his part from 6 Feet Under as David Fisher and a film clip of Dexter and play them side by side, you would swear, a Boy Scout oath, that there were two different actors. Because he truly is a shapeshifter among his other talents. But I still wasn't convinced, because just because you're a shapeshifter doesn't mean you can act. So I went and sat with the director, and they were in the middle of the script that day, out on, what's that ancient fish restaurant out on Virginia Key? Jimbo's, yeah, that's it. No, Rusty Pelican isn't ancient, that's just the chef. And I sat under a little awning with the director watching the monitor, and just because I really can't let an opportunity go by to show you what an idiot I am, the first line Michael said on camera, I burst into tears. And to show you how stupid I really am, here's the line, and a really good reading, I think. Refrigerated trucks. And I said, oh God, it's him. That's Dexter. Thank you, that's him. I've never had cause to reconsider that. I can't imagine anyone else now playing the part. I think he did a wonderful job, and that's something people always ask me. How do you think Michael did? He was brilliant. It was a wonderful job. I have nothing bad to say about him, except that he sort of snubbed me at the American Critics meeting. But other than that, you know, it was mostly his entourage that pushed me away. So the show was up and off, and I started selling books, and I still don't believe in them, but they're selling, and I've been all over the world. There's a moment, there's a good writer, he lives just up the coast, I think, named Daniel Keyes, who wrote Flowers for Algernon, which was turned into the movie Charlie. For some reason, he said that book was an unbelievable mega hit in Japan. And he told me of going to a signing in Tokyo. And he said the streets were just absolutely packed, but no one was moving. They were all standing 3 or 4 abreast in a line that circled the block 5 or 6 times. And he said, wow, is there a concert or something tonight? And I said, Daniel-san, they're here for you. And he sat at the table for 8 hours signing with tears in his eyes. Because this is what every actor, here I go, this is what every writer dreams of, to reach people like that. Well, I got that moment in Australia, my first trip. The first Australian tour, I think it was. And Canberra was the 4th stop on the tour. And at each of the 3 preceding stops, my handler would be walking along, the phone would ring, and he'd say, oh yeah, good Tom, mate. They've had to change the venue at Canberra. I said, oh, not enough people? He said, no, mate, too many. Bigger room. Okay, so that happened 3 times in a row. The final time he said, mate, we got trouble. I go, yeah, I know, back to a smaller room. He said, no, mate, they've got the biggest room on campus, and it's not big enough. I got there thinking, you know, there was some kind of weird optical illusion, but it was a really big lecture hall on the campus of the National University, and there wasn't even standing room. And when I finished, the line went out the door and around the building twice. And it was just extraordinary. I've given keynote speeches at conferences in the UK. I've been to Belfast and Glasgow and France and just all over the place with this thing. And it's been one truly amazing ride. So when I say to you that Dexter is dead, it's with a certain amount of mixed feelings. Because in the first place, Dexter is dead. And Dexter been very good to me. In the second place, I've had fun doing this. I said a long time ago, and I've repeated it several times, if I ever find myself at the point where it's tired and I'm phoning it in, I'll stop. I've seen too many writers of series start using the same jokes, the same situations, and it's just like, fine, type with one hand and sip daiquiris with the other. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go out on top. And it may well occur to you that the reason I say I'm so good at self-deprecating self-loathing is so that I can now say hesitantly, and hope you accept it, I think this is the best book of the series so far, the last one. But I think this is a really good book. I hope you'll each buy at least 5 copies. And it's been really fun. We're almost to the point now where I'm going to ask for questions and do a question and answer. There's one other thing I wanted to do first, which is swag. One or two of you have seen me before, and you know I like to give things away because I feel like people who have actually given up a night of TV to come see me deserve a little encouragement, especially to coming to a place like this. I can remember when Mitch only had one store and Borders was trying to run him out of business. And now he's got a dozen stores and Borders is gone. So I think that's pretty cool. This is what a bookstore should be. I don't say that because he's listening, but because it's true. This is what a bookstore should be. And I'm not being influenced by the wine bar either. This is... Anyway, unveiled for the first time anywhere. I've given away cheesy T-shirts everywhere else, but for Mitch's store, I'm doing something very special. This is the official Dexter is Dead baseball cap. Now, my real impulse is to auction it off for a donation to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. But because they wanted paperwork, I've decided I'll just do a trivia question and give it to the person who answers it correctly. Does that work for everybody, or would you rather give money to St. Jude's? That's okay, too. You can do that anyhow. You don't need a hat for that. All right, my question tonight is, can anyone here name one of Rita's signature dishes? A dish being something she cooks for dinner that gets Dexter very excited. Is that your hand raised back there? Yes, sir.
Roast pork.
Wow. And you can actually use a hat, too. Congratulations, Dexter. Now, I need to know if I've killed enough time and can move on to Q&A, or should I tell another joke? Or I don't remember who it was. Someone walked by me and they whistled one bar of Girl from Ipanema. And 30 seconds later, without even thinking about it, I'm going, tall and tan and young and lovely. I have the distinction of being, as far as I know, the only person for this remarkable accomplishment. I was in Havana shooting a documentary on Ernest Hemingway. And we were staying at the Hotel Nacional and having dinner in the main ballroom, and someone said, "You're a singer, aren't you, Jeff?" I said, "Well, yeah, sometimes." And they said, "Great." And the next thing I know, I'm at the concert grand piano singing Girl from Ipanema in the grand ballroom of the Hotel Nacional. I won't do that now. I just bring that up to kill one more minute before I go to Q&A, so you could polish off your questions. Does anyone at all have a question for me? Think for a minute while I take a sip. A question. It's going to be a very short Q&A. Yes?
It's a stupid question, but...
Good. I can answer those. The intelligent ones, not so much.
What about, how did you know about the blood splatters and all the technical stuff? I mean, you were in LA and, I don't know, being a comedian.
I started with a couple of really good friends who were cops. In fact, one of them was the model for Deborah. And I can tell you, pinpoint the exact moment the character of Deborah was born. Because I was talking with them, and they'd take me in and show me old case files and what things looked like in headquarters and so on. And I don't know where it came from, but one day I asked her, do cops ever really have, cute nicknames like on TV shows? And she said, yes. I said, really? Yes. I said, do you have a nickname? And she said, yes, I do. Really? What is it? Einstein. Einstein? Because you're so smart, she was. And you solve the cases? No. Because if my tits were brains, I'd be Einstein. At that moment, the character of Deborah was born. But from them, I went on, and I learned a lot. I met a few forensic people. I have friends still who do it, and I usually ask one of them to check the book. My favorite story about that is the guy here in Miami who actually has Dexter's job. These cop friends told me how to get in touch with him. And I called and sent emails, and he didn't respond. And finally, after several weeks of this, he sent me an email saying, I'm too busy, I'm sorry. Okay, I gave up on it and moved on. Now, the funny thing to me was, when the production for the TV show came to town, this guy met Michael Hall's plane and went around with him for a week, showing him every step of the process. And the real punchline to the story is that I told this story at the Miami Book Fair a few years ago. And when I was finished, another hand went up, and I said, yes, sir, in the back, what is it? And he said, I didn't meet his plane. And I was like, ha. So did that answer your question? I'm sure it's a coincidence. Is there another question somewhere? Was it in the back? Did I see just picking the nose? That's okay too. No, nothing. Yeah, everybody's picking. Yes, in the back.
How are you?
Don't ask. I'll tell you.
How do you feel with the adaptations from the book to the TV? For instance, Brian Moser doesn't really die on the book. He comes back in Darkly Dreaming Dexter. I know he's in the book. How did you feel, or how the producers contacted you for the adaptation and to move on with the story?
I never had problems with it. I know it wasn't totally faithful, and when I say totally, that's somewhat of an understatement. But it didn't bother me. It was a really good TV show, and my name went on the credits every time. And certain things happen different. First of all, it's different. They're different media. The rules are different. The things you have to do are totally different, and I understand that. I've worked in both media, and as I said, it won awards. People loved it. It was the #1 show in several countries. Not that I ever saw a nickel from that, but anyway, I don't have a problem with it. I liked the show, and they invited me to go with them to the Peabody Awards, which is nice because I got to say hello to Heidi Klum. And I got to stand at the urinal next to Stephen Colbert, which was really cool because I looked over and I didn't believe it was him, and it was, because it looked just like him. And I said, stupid things people say, I said, my daughter's a big fan of yours. And he said, how old is she? I said, 19. He went, good, my demographic. Did you have one? Yes.
Did you know when you began and stopped writing the series, how it would end? Did you always kind of know that it was...
The book series? Because there's only one question I answer about the TV series ending. and no one's asked it yet. For the book series, I had several ideas for the ending. I always knew someday it would end. I just didn't think it would be so soon. One of my favorite ideas was the Kind Hearts and Coronets ending. Does anyone here know the movie Alec Guinness, Kind Hearts and Coronets? In it, he's like the 16th man down the chain to become the next Earl of Schmedley or something. And he feels cheated because he feels he should be the Earl. So one at a time, he kills everyone between him and the earldom. And ironically, he is then arrested for a murder he did not commit and put in jail. And he is sentenced to be hung with a silk cord, of course. And the night before his execution, he writes out the entire confession of all the murders he's committed and signs it and puts it down, and he's now ready to meet his maker. Did that totally screw up the lapel microphone when I do that? And at the last second, the door bursts open and says, "Your victim was alive. You're free to go." And he goes, "Hosanna," and dances away and drives off in his carriage. And when he's about a mile away, he goes, "The confession." He left it in the cell. And I thought, what a great ending that would be for Dexter to do so, because nobody knows the movie. Why not? I can steal as well as anyone else. No TV writer can steal better than I can. But I decided against that. There were other things where I thought it would just end in jail with him bitter and disappointed and not at all resigned to his fate. And instead I came up with this, which I think is a pretty good ending. And instead of ending with him in jail, it starts with him in jail. And everyone has abandoned him. And he is, I retain this, he is in jail for murders he did not commit, which he considers terribly unfair. And he has absolutely no hope ever of getting out. And things are totally bleak and hopeless. And that really is the truth, because no one will ever help him. And I hope you enjoy the book after that. I won't give any more away, at least not until after the third drink. Is there not? Yes, over here.
With as far as
right. Did everybody hear the question? Good. All of them to some extent. I mean, the cooking that Rita does, that's from me. I'm the cook. There's a little of me in, Angel Batista, no relation. And just because in the books he's kind of, fussy about the way he would, and that's, they all have some mannerism of mine. Dexter, I'm expecting some reaction for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Dexter, most of all, is me. Not that I've even ever been arrested, seriously. But when I was in Hollywood and being a comic actor, I was in the... Wow, that was really good. I didn't know it would do that. I was in the New Talent Development Program at Paramount and later at ABC. And what they taught us was, as an actor, what you really need to hope for is not that lightning will strike and you'll become the next Tom Cruise, but that you'll get a part on a long-running sitcom as the wacky neighbor, because you're training as a comic actor. And you'll do your 5 lines a week, make a ton of money, and you'll take off the clown suit at the end of the day and go home to your wife and kids and live a relatively normal life. That's what I did with Dexter. I put it on every morning. I put on the Dexter suit, and I sat and I wrote as Dexter. I was inside him. I never thought I was Michael Hall or anything like that. I was always me being Dexter. And when I was done writing for the day, I took it off and hung it up. And I did that for 10 years. And I do kind of identify. I mean, his point of view, which is sort of like Alex de Tocqueville writing back about America and saying what a funny place it is and how weird the people are, that's Dexter. And that's what I did for so many years. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Amazing. Oh, okay, good. Yes, over here.
I think it's all the people that Dexter ends up killing on the show, and they come from a very different source and very different parts of life. And you said it's the birth of Deborah, so I'm interested in if there's one particular character who was killed, who has an interesting story behind them.
Not as such. Most of them are based on like former agents or landlords or something. But on the whole, the victims were more of a foil to Dexter than any real character. I mean, if they were important victims, I tried to make them characters too. But for the most part, it was invented stuff. It wasn't actually based on anybody. Just for example, in book 2, Dr. Danko, I'd heard rumors that there were people that actually did those things. And I just thought that would be an interesting twist. For those who didn't read it, he cuts off everything, leaving only a squealing potato, just a head and a body, no eyelids, no lips, no tongue, no arms, legs, nothing. And he does it a little bit at a time over several weeks. Yes, it's a form of torture and amusement, but yes.
You mentioned that a lot of your ideas come from either rumors or tales from cops, but did you ever meet or spend any time with real serial killers?
I'm almost positive I have. But I don't really know. The closest I came to certainty is a guy I knew sort of well. One evening after perhaps one too many tequilas, he said to me, "Tell the truth." I said, "I always do." He said, "Did you base Dexter on me?" I said, there may be another talk we need to have first, but no. Other than that, I will just say that according to my psychologist friends, in particular a guy I met in Australia. Oh, I love Australia. And he said, mate, there's a lot more of them out there than you think. I said, really? Like 5, 6, 7%? He goes, mate, 20%. Psychopaths? Yeah, 20%. Where are all the bodies? He said, well, they don't all become killers. Mostly they go into business. Think about that for a minute, and then things like the BP oil spill start to make sense. But the other side to that is that most of the serial killers that police catch, A, either want to be caught, or B, are sort of dumb and clumsy and get caught because of that. Now, if there actually was someone like Dexter, and I think there probably is more than one, who is smart and careful, they could go on indefinitely. And if you wonder how that's possible, please go Google missing persons statistics in the United States. And there are a whole lot of missing bodies somewhere, not all of them in alligator holes in the Everglades that I know nothing about. Did that answer your question? Good. Yes?
Sorry for my English. I have a question for you.
Si. What language would you like to ask me?
No, it's okay. I'm from Italy. Okay.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Have you ever killed somebody? The first question. The second, which kind of relationship do you have with death?
With which?
With which kind of relationship do you have with death? And the third, is for you Dexter a hero? And which kind of hero is he?
Very good. First, have I ever killed anyone? And second was not knowingly, but I learned to drive in Miami, so if I had, I wouldn't have hung around to, The second question, was that
Which kind of
relationship with death? I cannot live at all unless I deny the possibility completely, every day. If I start to believe seriously that I'm going to die, I would probably just not get out of my chair. I'd just sit and once more go, why me? Why does it have to be me? I don't want it. Why is it always me? I don't want it. And bringing in another large piece of Dexter, considering the possibility that something like that could happen to my kids, is so unthinkable that if I even get it in my head, I can't sleep for days. The third question, which I think is obvious, I've forgotten already.
which kind, is Dexter a hero for you?
Oh, a hero. Is Dexter a hero? No. I thought of him as a horrible person. He's a serial killer. I was thinking anyone among the 5 or 6 people who read the book would probably, one or two of them would think, wow, this is an ironic inquiry into the nature of morality and situational ethics. And instead he became an international hero. And once again, all I could do was say, what's wrong with people? I mean, seriously, look, you could be watching AGT at home right now. This is... So it appalls me. And by implication, now I appall me too, which is at least a little more positive than self-loathing. Yes, back here.
Did you have a favorite victim/villain?
Good question. Yes, I think so. Oh gosh, well, she was a victim, yes. My favorite victim was in Dexter is Delicious. It was the young girl who wanted to be eaten. I have to say once again, as I've said since the book came out, this is not, fanciful twisting of fiction. Dexter is Delicious was the book that almost switched me to writing children's books. Because as I was doing the research, I came across something. Please don't verify this unless you really need to. There's something on the internet, lots of them, called cannibal chat rooms. And I thought this has got to be about the band. What is it, Fine Young Cannibals? And it's not. And I read 10 or 12 emails and postings, I guess they're called. And about 2 of them were from people who wanted to be eaten. Now, I would have thought, given that something like this exists, that it would all be about, how do we find someone to eat? We must eat someone. No. This was from a 16-year-old girl who posted, I am young, healthy, and really good looking. Ever since I was 5 years old and went on a hunting trip with my father and my brother, and I saw them slit open a deer that they'd killed, all I could think about was that I wanted to be eaten someday. Please consider me. And so she became that character in the book. Now, favorite, as I said, I quit early that day. And although it was like 6 in the morning, I went out and had a double martini and then just sat with the dog on my lap for about 4 hours. It was hard to take, but, truth sucks. Have I totally killed the glow? No. Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you for that, because when I read that book and I commented to them, I said, this is one sick pup,
Yeah.
meaning you.
Yeah. No, it was the dog, actually, because I petted so hard that...
That really was provocative.
It was for real.
I can't say, that's the only word I can use is provocative.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Thank you.
explaining that.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, as far as Dexter, do you think he ever actually loved?
No. A sociopath cannot feel love. Love requires empathy, among other things, and they can't feel it. I'm sorry? No, the research I have seen, and I've been told by psychologists doing the research, brain mapping, if you're familiar with the term, what they're discovering is that people who are sociopaths have an actual physical difference in their brains. There's a lump there that shouldn't be, or maybe they don't have one that they should. I'm not positive. But the point is, they can't change. That's the way they are forever and ever. And so you read about people who on death row go, I've seen Jesus, you can let me out now, I'm okay. It doesn't happen. That's how they are. They're set. And the most that can be said is, well, they'll give up killing and become a CEO of an oil company. So, yes?
Along the lines of one of the last questions, which character did you enjoy killing the most? The other question is, including this book but not including Dexter, what is the final body count?
Well, the second question first, I have no idea. I don't keep track. Honestly, I don't even know how many books I've written. So how many people I've killed in the books, I couldn't begin to guess. Whose death of the villains, I would have to say it's Dexter by design. Not because he was particularly loathsome, but because he enjoyed his own death so much. It became a piece of performance art. And that was a fun book to write, as opposed to Delicious, which was a little bit of agony. But it was fun, and he dies on, his last words are, "Take lots of pictures," as he's dying. So I enjoyed that the most.
Folks, I think we have time for one more question.
One more. Make it a good one. Pressure's on. Ready? Go. Come on.
Actually, we have been talking about characters, and I feel like a lot of the Dexter novels, there's a character that is always there, and it's South Florida, and it's Florida, and you are from here. Different from Dexter that is dead. Do you think that in your other books you will resuscitate South Florida as a character?
I think so. As you said, it's my home. I have a love-hate relationship with it because I've watched it go from a kind of sleepy little town where everybody more or less got along to this crazy, insane kind of reality show where you try to see how many people you can kill on the way to work each day. And you gotta love it. It's one of the greatest places in the world, but it's on the world too, isn't it? Because never mind. Anyway, see, tangent spotter. But it's also, it's got a lot about it that I find disturbing. And I don't like having that many bars on the windows and locks on the door. And so many high-powered weapons in my house either. That's disturbing. I have one last thing to say, which is just a little bit traditional with me. I'm a theater geek, as the Cornel Racine thing should have revealed. In my study of theater, I learned that in Chinese theater, at the end of the performance, the cast comes to the edge of the stage and applauds the audience because without them, there is no show. Now, this has been, from my perspective, one hell of a show and an amazing run. And really, all I can say sincerely is thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we do have the books for sale behind the counter. In addition to, we do know how many books you've written. They're all out there for sale as well as backlist. For those of you watching online, give us a call. We'll get a book signed for you. I know this might be the end of Dexter, but hopefully it's not the end of the beginning of something else. So can we get another round of applause for Jeff? So as you rise, if you would do me the favor of folding your chairs, leaning me against the back, we'll have plenty of room for Jeff to sign. We'll be right over here. Books are for sale behind the counter. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.